So that means that you, the guy next to you, the people who have made some weak decisions, the people who have been browbeaten, the people who have simply stepped back, it's time to step up. This is what you were talking about. Hard times, let's do it before it gets to really hard times. Let's become strong men and make strong decisions, and strong women. Let's become the strong people out of what is coming, rather than having to be beaten to our knees to realise that we need to stand back up. G'day folks, Mark here again. Another chat about what's going on in Australia at the moment, in reference our gun bans, in reference the Royal Commission, what's going on, Bondi attack, that sort of stuff. And I suppose I start by saying, for those that are crowing about, oh, we got the Royal Commission, we've got that happening, that's really good, that's great, so now we'll get it, now it'll all come out. Listen, no, that's still possible, but still very unlikely. The Royal Commission is being framed, as you can hear it, about social cohesion, and that means very different things to me. But I suppose let's step back a few pages and think about this. If you're going to try and set up something that, whether you're using a set of circumstances or they were more orchestrated, regardless, to try and get in a situation where you have a lot of control over what the outcome of the event's going to be, like the outcome of the Royal Commission is going to be, would you immediately announce a Royal Commission and then with exactly the details you want, with a friend judge who's actually going to be controlling it, and a framing of the Royal Commission which is very set in a particular way? Well, no, you wouldn't just straight up do that, because you'd get called out. It would seem really sus. But if you said no for long enough, like you were really resisting, you didn't really want it, then the population is more likely to accept what you're offering, because it looks like you capitulated to their needs, where in actual fact you actually stalled long enough to get what you wanted with it looking like you've offered something. That's really simple politics. That's really quite obviously what's happening here, and I can't say I have evidence to say that up. I just have to stop and look and say, listen, very clearly it's set up where it, at this moment, framed to be something that's going to talk about social cohesion, which makes perfect sense if you think about what we all know the government's up to, and the parts of the government. Let's not blame all the government, but parts of the government are up to. Well, let's look at what actually happened. Without needing to make anything up whatsoever, the moment Bondi happened, within 10 days we have a gun ban. A very comprehensive gun ban that's coming forward. So we're going to have firearm reforms. We don't have a firearm problem. It wasn't a firearm problem. Everyone's aware of that. There were firearms used by a terrorist problem, for sure, which some would say would be better than if it was a bus or fire bombs or acid or that sort of stuff. But okay, they used very specific firearms. And so now we're going to blame the firearm. Obviously doesn't make any sense. But the majority of the public have already been convinced that taking firearms off the people would be good. Now, let's step back for a minute and look at the whole rhetoric we've been listening to for a fair few years now, is get the guns off the streets. There weren't any guns there were no legal guns on the streets, apart from what the police force are carrying around. The only ones were criminals. All the guns that they were taking were out of people's safes. But now we have replaced it with guns on the streets. We have rifles roaming the streets now. They are, some wouldn't call them high power, they are high power. They're a 223, 556, so they are a weapon that the other side class as a weapon of war, an assault rifle. They are an AR-15 or an M4. And for those that don't realise, they're also using hunting ammo, with the logic of, so they don't get as much pass-through, they're putting very dangerous hunting ammo. Expanding bullets is what they use in those rifles. So they are deadly force that they're roaming around with. And yes, they will expand. If they are accurate and hit in exactly the right place, they are more likely to stop and kill that thing that they just shot. If they miss, they're probably likely to do that to the next thing that they run into. So extraordinarily dangerous, extraordinarily much a case of trying to create fear is the main stance you see. Our public streets are now have these people roaming around, and yet we have a whole heap of our population that think that's a good thing for some reason or other. Roaming around where we don't have a problem, well, we've brought the guns onto the streets. Anyway, we wanted to, there was immediately remove guns. The other thing that we know that the government, or parts of the government, are pushing are social media bans in various forms and digital ID on various forms. So there's hate speech, free speech, basically control over speech, whether you want to call them blasphemy laws, where they're going to be framed as to not being anti-Semitic laws or blasphemy laws, we're going to call it. But really what it's going to be, if you stop and have a look at this and think about this, social cohesion. So the aim of this Royal Commission, this aim of this incident, the aim of this process starts to clearly look like it's focused on stopping, controlling the social media. So, and you do that with a digital ID, which then lines up with all sorts of other things that we know are coming in the way of digital currency, in the way of one-world banking, in the way of it moves into as terrible things as social credit score. Things that you say that stuff now and it's tinfoil hat, but look around our world, this is a functioning system. It is happening. It is being pushed by various places. And we have the perfect framing, social cohesion, to where the government can tell you what to think, what to say, and try and control more things. They just tried it with the under 16 ban. We know it's about that. We know they're trying to push digital ID. That's got pushed back, but not really. And they keep on going. Well, this then, if you step back and look at that, this Royal Commission, which came out of this incident, was never, ever, ever not exactly what they want. Not exactly what they want, so they can frame it that way. Now, whether it stays in that neck of the woods or it doesn't, it's where at least parts of the government, parts of the legal system want it to go. That's where they want it to go. So as for how we change that or how we deal with that, well, understanding the process to start off with. So crowing about we got the Royal Commission, so we've got them, they've capitulated, he's starting to listen to people. What a load of rubbish. I believe this was 100% the plan right from the start off with. Doesn't mean we can't use it, but there's still a lot of work to do here. I suppose the other bits that that's the main thing I wanted to start with, understand that. And I suppose the real reason for the video is there's a fair few people saying, well, what do we do? What is it we do? Of course, we're in Western Australia. I have our own issues over here. There are people that have given up. And this is what the new norm is. You know, we've lost our firearms, and maybe we've got to lose some more because of what's happened in New South Wales. But it's just going to stay here. To start off with, that's not the plan. That's not the plan by any means whatsoever. The plan is to get these laws in, and then have the power to take the rest. It'll be rapidly slice by slice by slice by slice, and maybe incident involved in each slice to get to that place, and maybe not. They have the power to do this. That's part of what we spoke about so many times with a lot of Henry VIII clauses, which means that the government can change, or parts of the government can, and in our case, the police minister and the police commissioner can together simply change a rule that says, okay, you were allowed 5, no, we've decided it's 2. Because this incident we've decided 2, and it does not need parliamentary permission to do that. It can just happen. There's no power to stop it. Let alone all the other bites and bits and pieces of where you can be fined $5,000 for having a round of .22 ammo in your car. That is conceivable. That is in the law. How it's enacted and that sort of stuff, okay, for sure, but it's already there. So it is very onerous what is coming, and trying to wake people up to that is very important. So for us in Western Australia, the real job, which I've got to get on to helping push and that sort of stuff, is stopping people giving up, keeping on to keeping things in the news, in our whether it's social media, whether it's newspaper articles, whether whatever it is, to keep the actual tragedy of what's actually happened, the actual hypocrisy of what's happened, the actual government overreach of what's happened, and the real true grief that's actually happened. The people that are really suffering because of these laws. Obviously, always focused on the fact that they've started here with the firearms. They've already started to and heavily attack the fisheries. They're already making noises about the four-wheel drives. Large vehicles really shouldn't be on the road, that sort of stuff there. They kill more pedestrians. these things are all in the newspaper, and I hope that people are looking at things and realizing what's in play here. They want all your fun. It's not just fun. I don't know. The end goal of this whole thing is, listen, too serious to talk about in the fashion of, and I suppose that's part of what I'd like to try and help people with. Part of the job of everyone is to be talking to the people in your family and the people in your relationships and the people in your work and that sort of stuff that are on the edge, that maybe can actually start to wake up. Ultimately, what's in play is about everyone's freedoms. And yes, even though they might have purple and pink hair and they think that everything's on their side and they're getting what they want at the moment, that isn't the plan. The plan is to control everyone and get everyone to fit into their, whatever it is, their little square box, their grey suit and no smiles, their social credit score, their eat bugs and be happy, or whatever it is. And obviously, I suppose I say those things in that sort of fashion because you have to be very careful. You just take one step too far in talking to other people and you're instantly a cooker. You're a tinfoil hat wearer, you're completely broken. Now, are you wrong in some of those thoughts? Well, no, there's places around the world that show very, very thoroughly. Look at China. Look at the system that we're starting to adopt, which is the same as what the Chinese system works. And there is a social credit score. And you do get fined for jaywalking on a road where an AI camera picks you up and you instantly are money taken out of your account, your social credit score drops, and maybe you can't go and buy a steak at this moment, or maybe your holiday just got cancelled because you can't leave the city at this moment, or that does actually exist. But can you share it with too many people? It's complicated, and you have to find a way to get to that place where there is what is being obviously spoken. Like I said, fisheries, fall drives, what they're talking about there, those things are really serious. The overreaches of what the government's doing, when they've done things that you can actually read, and we're going to try and get more paperwork out, we can actually read, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. That's not fair. There is overall things that I'd have to talk about and I'm trying to think about. I suppose what I would say is getting together with mates, smart mates, and complaining and shouting and swearing and crying into your beer isn't going to help. But creative thought of, well, if you do get hit with this sort of question, or you bring back problems of trying to talk to people and they won't listen to this, we'll start to dissect that problem, start to dissect that situation and what is it they do understand. I'd say, one of the things that I was thinking of recently, when it comes to saving a life, when it comes to CPR and you learning how to actually be able to help someone that's just been electrocuted or having a heart attack or whatever it is serious, whether it's snake bite, whether it's whatever it is, that you've learned how to be able to help them. That's part of being a good person. And the likes of CPR and the understanding, which most people should know by now, is if someone has stopped breathing, as long as you can keep air going into them, as long as you can keep, whether it's the right amount of compressions, it doesn't actually matter the timing of that sort of stuff so much. If they are still to where you can potentially do something and you just stay at it up to for as long as until the paramedics get there, you may be the person that saved them, not because you're doing it right, but because you kept doing it. But see, those things there, they're starting to tell the world that sort of stuff, but it is so good that people understand and can help save people's lives. And that's very much encouraged. But if it comes to the lethal threat, you having a firearm and being able to stop it that way, or actually any sort of weapon, but particularly in our neck of the woods, you're having a firearm and being able to save those people, that family, because you had a firearm, that's not encouraged. That doesn't make any sense. It's the same lives you're saving. It's the same. It's just, wait a minute, what, like I said, there's some logical things of, wait a minute, wouldn't it be good if someone could save when the police are 20 minutes away? And yes, that's a real thing in a country town, in that sort of stuff in Australia. If there is someone who can save you, that's standing there, that could help in a bad situation, as more and more violence comes in our country, more and more of this sort of stuff happens, both by what's immigrating, yeah, there's some of that, but the general temperature, everything raising, and the desperation of people that don't have any money because of the cost of living crisis, these things are real. And not being able to protect yourself or your loved ones or your neighbours, that's a curious differentiation of things. You can save them there, but you can't save them if you're using something that might contain lethal force. Yeah, it's an interesting, and that might be a conversation you use in places, it might not. Anyway, those are conversations that we should be having. But what our big picture is for Western Australia, and it is to a certain degree for the eastern states also, with New South Wales and the rest of the country, is people, whether it's on the streets, whether it's protesting, whether it's rallies, all obviously polite, neat and tidy. I'm not talking about violence by any means whatsoever, but making sure we're there for the public to see. We're there for the media to see. We do that well. It does cause problems for the government. It does cause problems for their system. It's harder for them to leap forward, to take bigger steps, if there are people actually saying things that we don't want this to happen. And our sharing things on social media, well, isn't enough, because largely we're talking to the crowd. We're talking to the choir. So actually being out to we're there and we end up being in the mainstream media takes a lot of control, I get it, but being out there in some form or other. The likes of articles in newspapers, well-written articles, you can go out and do that sort of stuff. You're not waiting, you should not be waiting for someone to do this for you. If you can write, you've got a team, you've got a club, you've got a couple of mates, you can do it yourself. You go and write something up, you can go and approach newspapers. Some won't take it, some are bought, but some aren't. You go through in the free, I shouldn't say they're free, but the press that are able to take on, they're able to take on a bit of the fight. They like to push back against a little bit against the government side of things. You put in smart written articles that go through, now it doesn't need to be about firearms. It can just something like government overreach. It can be about the four-wheel drive problems, the fishery problems, that sort of stuff. But if you tie it back to this is actually a place they can fight with what they're up to in the firearms, in the government overreach or the government complicity or whatever you want to say, these are all relevant things that if we keep on doing that and we keep on getting away into those articles or that media, then that's actually a problem for the government. We have seen how that happens over here, and it is. If there's enough of that keeps happening, then it's hard for them to step forward. What they really want is silence. And a whole heap of noise on social media. Listen, it helps, I suppose there's a little bit of stuff when there's memes of prime ministers and that sort of stuff, but it's more a good cover for them to be able to do things about. When there's actual serious stories that go through and explain stuff, there's whether it's tear-jerking in the fashion of what this family's been put through, or it's to the level where it's the real warnings of what's coming. Maybe it is. Where's those stories that actually go through and explain what is going on in China? What's going on? There's a couple of countries around the world that have gone with full digital ID and what this actually turns into. Where there is articles where it isn't just the choir that have researched these things and read these things and have the threads or have the algorithms pushed them into the place where they get to see stuff that most people don't. Where it actually is, that's taken from those places. Those are verified stories. You make sure they're real. You make sure you're not making anything up, and then get that as an article in a fashion where people can actually read it. These are very relevant things. As I said, being super aware of grandstanding politicians, of grandstanding groups, of people who are simply trying to get your money, and that, or your money or your interest, because this is a place where it's a good time to talk about it. Obviously, some are going to be doing exactly the same. They seem to be doing the same thing, but doing a good job. Some are not. They're just there because they want the other bit. So it is a case of kind of switched on. I would reiterate, it is for you to stand up. It is for you to do things, whether it's you and your mates, whether it's you and your family, whether that's you and your club, whether that's you by yourself. It is for you. It's not for someone else to do. That's the thing that matters here. It has to be grassroots. That's where this stuff has to come from. I'd also reiterate on the legal action side of things. The legal action, in truth, is unlikely to be worth anything unless the people are making noise. So making noise. Now, whether that's protests on the streets, whether that's rallies at Parliament House or at some place that's relevant, so it's a rally where you talk about things. That could be stop work, stop work weeks. That could be that sort of stuff. That could be not paying taxes. That could be, I don't know all the things it could be, but it is a form of disruption. Peaceful social disorder. So not really breaking laws, but pushing up to where it's a problem which has to be well framed, which has to be set up to where it is very much a case of putting for our best foot forward, but being quiet, simply being polite, simply doing the right thing, completely following every instruction they have, is their plan. And do understand, right at the moment, even down to the Royal Commission, that is their plan. That's not your plan. You didn't make that happen. We didn't make that happen. They actually, the members of the government, and I'll reiterate, it isn't the whole government we're fighting with, and that's actually something to be very careful about. The moment you frame that it's us against the government, as much as, yeah, I've said it before, it's not really what I mean, and it's something to be careful about how you frame it. Because they're not against the whole government. There's a whole heap of good people in the government. There's a whole heap of switched off people that have got the job for the money or the perks or that sort of stuff for sure. It is a place where they don't really reward excellence. There's a flawless organisation, so going down is nearly impossible. Or ceiling a organisation, I've forgotten how you describe it. You'll either move up to get you out of the road. If they can't move you sideways, then they'll move you up, sort of stuff. So there is a lot of issues that our government has, but it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't mean that we're fighting the whole government. There is only parts of our government that are actually up to some of these things, in my summation. Most of it are, listen, yeah, you term useful idiot. A lot of them are probably in the world of they really think they're doing the absolute best thing, while some of their decisions are not working for Australia. Ultimately, what I would like to say for everyone, and this also includes our gun groups, and the thing that they should get into in whatever form is positive advertising for firearms. This thing is so much more than firearms, without any question. This is the future. This is your kids. This is their kids. This is the future of Australia. We're in a really nasty 30-year process unless we can pull the horns up right now. There really is a government that plans on full acceleration. The logic I've heard explained is they're in a place where this does come from other parts in the world. It's also some parts from inside our Australia, but there is a place where the world is waking up really fast. But they're trying to shut it down even faster. That's why I've heard it explained that they are trying so hard at the moment. They're going too fast, which is waking people up, but that's because people are waking up. So there's an advantage for us if we use it properly. But that's also, we're on a time frame too, because they get to where they shut enough of it down, they bring in enough rules, they bring enough of controls, they bring enough of the bits and pieces where they can control us. It's a lot harder fight. So now we're still in this place where, as bad as it seems, it's nowhere near as bad as it's going to get. And this is about your future. There are things right at the moment they're setting up to where gun shops and manufacture and things like that in the East Coast, at least, are looking like being able to get bought out. That moves into where we've got this ugly situation where there are individuals that didn't know their way out of this. As the economy drops off, as guns become less popular, then, okay, well, I can take the $2 million and go off fishing for the rest of my life. And you've got to sympathise with it to a degree. It is a pretty terrible part of the Australian attitude. If there's money for free, then I'll take it. It's not how we used to be, but it's what we've turned into. But could you really, what's their way out of what they do things here? So I sort of understand on one side, but I would hate to think those same businesses are then going to go quiet because they hope to get more out of it and really throw Australia under the bus in that process. I hope that they can find a way to, okay, I don't want to begrudge them a way out to finish their business off because they were going to do that anyway because it was failing anyway. I'd hate to begrudge them out, but I hope they can be part of the fight in between. And that's a very important thing. We're all going to need to sacrifice at some form or other. That might mean that you're going to have to spend more than you want to on things, whether it's traveling to events or it's helping with fundraisers or it's helping with whatever it is, that your life isn't, you don't get the extra Bali holiday the year or whatever it is. There needs to be, this is a very, very important thing. And I will get back to that advertising side of things. I truly do believe, I know, that if we can work a way to where there is real money invested in positive advertising for Australians, that means for all of us. Firearms has to be a very small piece of it, but it still gets a little piece of it. 2% of an ad is where there's a firearm involved, where there's hunting involved, there's something involved, but largely it's Aussies having fun, Aussies being Aussies. Where are those ads? Where have they been for the last 50 years? This is, I do to some degree or another blame the industry for not being proactive enough to actually help push back at the culture at a huge, extraordinarily expensive anti-gun lobbying group, or they're attached to the government in various forms. They are very, very hidden. And my understanding when I tried to research that situation is you Google it, you ask the Google AI thing and what's going on, and it'll tell you, oh no, there's a lot of money spent in the pro-gun lobbying, but there's just a few mums and pas. There's a very small organisation in the anti-gun side of things. Well, that's a fabrication. What's actually in play is, I think there was a decent group, and I can't remember all the names, so I'm not going to mess them up, that did start to put its funding up, what it was actually doing, where money was going, and they got a lot of kickback from the anti-gunners. Don't share that sort of information. So now that's all hidden. But yes, they are far wealthier. There's a lot of money spent in the anti-gun side of things, in the gun grabber, the gun control, whatever you're going to call it. The government, every time they want to talk about something, they'll go and talk to the gun control groups about what we should do with guns. They don't bother with the gun advocates. They don't bother with the people who actually know what's going on. They go with these strange people who hide in university professors and things like that, socialist groups that, yeah, they don't want their guns, go figure. But there's also a lot of money to attach to this. That may be another argument you can use with people, the amount of money that's spent. It's a hard one because it's very well hidden, but it's very obvious if you watch the actual rhetoric and where it comes. There's never the other side represented, always one way. And we haven't pushed back. We haven't actually changed that rhetoric. There's a lot more I could go on about that sort of stuff. There's a lot of things that we have to do. Firearms is, listen, so very important to the future of Australia, actually, in the power dynamic of what's going on. It is a psychological warfare that's in play here, where they are, as I said, there's firearms on the streets. The same thing they said they didn't want, well, there they are roaming around in plain sight. We have very lowly trained police officers in the fashion of they have very low training requirements, and they're wandering around with literally semi-automatic, in some cases they have select fire, full automatic, but in most cases semi-automatic, the same, those assault rifles, horrible term, with hunting ammo roaming our streets. So this is we have the power, you will do as you're told. And as for disarming the civilians, a conversation that people come up with, which is, well, you know, we need firearms in civilians' hands because to stop government tyranny, you know, Second Amendment sort of stuff. The moment you say that out loud to most people, you're a cooker, you're crazy. You couldn't take on the military and the government, you couldn't do that, you're not big enough. And they're right. In a practical sense, that wouldn't work. We're not organised enough. Even if there are enough guns, there's not enough people who'd ever do that, all sort of stuff. It's not going to work that way. But that's not what it's about. It's about making sure that you, the civilians, know you're disarmed. And we, the government, are armed. It's a power dynamic. It means you will comply because there's no one to resist for you. And just, yeah, it comes down to just a few with firearms. There's still someone to resist for you. There's still those people that are going to fight for us, so it gives us some hope. You take all the hot firearms off. It's why when countries go to socialism, it's why they disarm. It isn't actually the individual threat. It's more the psychological power of the situation. Then you become oppressed because they have the power, you do not have the power, so you will comply because of that reason. So I think that's the thing that I want to go with, the things that I would say that we should be doing, and I'll nutshell it off, is what we should be is being noisier in whatever form. Talking about sort of stuff, being noisier. If it's no more than social media posts, then work out a way to get out of the out of the algorithm, whether that's a TikTok account, whether that's an X account, whether that's something, and it has a bit more of a left sway to it to go and actually feed in some information. It doesn't need to be they're taking our guns. No, it needs to be a little bit of a broader picture of what's actually in play. It needs to be attaching to some of the liberal white women, the younger liberal white women that are very convinced that firearms are bad, and that the government is on the right track, and understand, okay, do some connections that go to this other track. The newspaper posts, the newspaper articles, anyone can write an article. You can talk to them, you write a decent article, you make it a decent thing. There are papers around the place who'll share this stuff. You have to once again understand the dynamics of that stuff. There's some thought to it, but we should be doing it. Whether it's protests and other forms, yes, it's very, very important. If you think that the $500,000 that's been raised for the one of the legal things that's going on is going to do everything by itself, it is not. Absolutely not. It has a chance of raising more people attached to it and a chance of being a notable, promotable thing that's actually happening. But in its fight by itself, no, it's not going to do anything unless it's got the people on its side. So we have to not only be on its side and be noisy about it, but also bring more people in. Pro-gun advertising, come on. Whoever that is, the groups are staying there. There is money need to be organised. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it comes from you. I don't know. But start the process. Stop looking for someone else to do this. I'd say in general, stop looking for someone else. This is your job. This is your job. Now, whether you're only a small part of a large thing or you're a big part of a thing that can do it by yourself, I don't know. But do understand this matters a whole lot. So as to the last bits of it, as to the protest sort of stuff, listen, I don't know where that goes exactly. You know, there's stop work things, there are strikes, that's the likes of being organised in the UK to try and make big statements. There's people talk about not paying your taxes, that sort of stuff. The do not comply, listen, I get it. I understand the logic of the do not comply. We will be picked off individually. So we need to organise things we can do as a group before we get to that place. We need to be able to work out a way to resist before we can be picked off one by one. So there is some nasty things in play here. Being loud, getting more people on your side is really important. Listen, I think that's a little lost now that I was going all that. I hope that all makes sense. Very important that we all wake up. I suppose a bit I do want to finish on to go with this. The story. Good times create weak men. Weak times create bad times. Bad times create strong men. Good strong men create good times. And then good times create bad men. A cycle we're all not talking about. It says that we're in the weak man thing. We've had the good times, now we're in the weak men thing. I think there's people who then go, no, shut up, that's not me, or oh, it's just everybody else. Well, in actual fact, it is talking about, I suppose the thing to understand there is bad times don't breed strong men. No, men who've done weak things start to do strong things because of the bad times. So that means that you, the guy next to you, the people who have made some weak decisions, the people who have been browbeaten, the people who have simply stepped back, it's time to step up. This is what you were talking about. Hard times, let's do it before it gets to really hard times. Let's become strong men and make strong decisions, and strong women. Let's become the strong people out of what is coming, rather than having to be beaten to our knees to realise that we need to stand back up. Anyway, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you next time.